Hold on, this is not, there we go. Because I got all my records out and I want to show them all. So there we go.
Holy shit.
That's a good.
All the Ghost.
Well, well, technically yes, but I don't have a standalone version of Pope Star because my version of prequel, or however you pronounce it, or Meloria, that one, never mind.
Yeah,
my version comes with Pope Star in it. But eventually, I would like to get a standalone Pope Star, and yeah. But other than that, that's pretty much all the vinyl releases that they have, including the 7 inches of Satanic Panic.
Yeah.
That's a good way to start this.
Yeah.
With me showing off my collection and forgetting the name of an album. Hello, Ghosts fans. They're already turning it off. They're just like, these fuckers are going to talk about Ghost. This is one of those episodes that I feel could go either way, where like a lot of people watch it or listen to it because they are a really big band, or like they're a band that doesn't necessarily attach to the YouTube and podcast crowds. And so it ends up being like not very many people listen. Either way, I'm excited to do this. Hi, this is Cranked and Ranked. This show is called Cranked and Ranked, and we rank band discographies, and we do a bunch of other shit too. We've been doing this, if you're new, we've been doing this for over 4 years. And we finally got to the point where, two dudes that are obsessed over, 80s and 90s type shit, we've started to get into some more modern bands. And so that leads us now to Ghost, which is a band that I've very recently I'll get into that. We'll get into like where we got into the band and all that shit. But I'm old head. That's Eddie Sparxx. Whatever side, I guess it would be this side. Which side am I pointing? One of these two sides has Eddie Sparxx.
I'm guessing it's this one, but to you it may be the other way. I don't know. Could be.
I'm not. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, that's who we are. Hello, thank you in podcast world. Thank you for listening. And I'm trying to think. Are there any things that I wanted to talk about before we get started? Any current events? Can't think of anything. Oh, we have an Oasis reunion.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe.
Nice. I didn't realize that two of their biggest hits have maybe in it, and I'm like, oh man, they love that word maybe.
Very
don't really want to know. I just now. Sorry guys, we'll get to Ghost in a second. I actually have just now, for the first time, because I liked Oasis, but I never like got into them, and I'd only really heard Morning Glory from beginning to end. That's the only album I'd heard of theirs all the way through, and I really like it. But for some reason, it never led me to listen to other stuff. But I took it upon myself to listen to definitely Maybe, the first album, and I was like, where the fuck is this? Why am I just now listening to this? Like, it's like really good. And I was just like, okay, well, maybe I'm going to be an Oasis fan now, like slowly but surely. Cause honestly, like I'm not going to go see them, because even if they toured over here, I'm not forking over all the money that it's going to cost to go see them. But I am a little bit wrapped up in the excitement, cause I'm like, I love it when people get excited about bands doing things. When it's all fucking positive and excitement, it's infectious, and it makes me excited as well. So
yeah, it's cool. Like the whole Britpop thing was never really my bag, but like I get why people are excited, because they wrote anthems, of their era, and who knows? There's time for me to get get into them, but I was always that like outlier guy in Britain who just never really got on board with it. When it came to 90s rock, I was always more of a grunge guy.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. You're in the big war between Oasis and Blur. You were like, fuck both of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, but I feel like eventually we'll rank them. But I think we've talked about this before. We would need to rank the Beatles first.
Yeah.
It would be disrespectful.
Yeah.
But funny enough, the weird thing though is that I also went back and kind of cherry picked some Blur songs, only to realize that Blur aren't very good. It's so weird that like you have these two bands that are so pitted against each other so often. And I was thinking about the popular songs from Blur, and I went, I don't like any of them. I don't like any of the popular songs from Blur. So I just listened to like other songs that were like big songs, and I was like, none of these are any good. like nothing hits me, and I go, oh, this is more like the art school crowd that like don't even really listen to the music. They just kind of talk. They just say, I like Blur. And then that's
fuck life. Sorry. Sorry, I had to put Park Life on the end of what you just said.
Yeah.
Because
he talks through that song.
Yeah, we had this running gag in college where if someone was like really getting into their conversation, we would just drop Park Life, you know.
Nice. All right, well we can leave that. We'll get back to them at some point. We probably if we ever do Blur, it's going to be a long time from now because I don't think I'll have a very good time because I don't like what I've heard. Not to say that other people can't have their own opinions, because I believe we're talking about a band today that I think in certain respects is divisive. Because there are people that absolutely love Ghost. Ghost is the band we're talking about, if you didn't already know. And there are other people. It was
a funny way to spell Oasis.
And then there are other people that seem like that's one of their go-to, like, metal as shit, go listen to Ghost, you fucking poser. You know, like that's like, it's like they're a quote unquote poser band or whatever, where most people have lost track of what a poser actually was. Because if you actually like something, you can't be a poser. Like them's the rules. Posers are people that hop on just to join the crowd, but aren't really into it. They just want to do it because it's popular. Yeah. But actually liking something, we're all about that. Go out and do that.
That's just authenticity, dude.
Go out and like things. But this is an interesting band for me. We usually start off with like where this band came into our lives, and I think that this is one where like I have kind of a split story, and then yours, like you've known of them, but I don't think until now you've really listened to a lot of their stuff.
I've had like kind of an on and off thing with Ghost over the years where I saw them on their first album cycle.
Okay.
And it was at a gig at Plymouth Pavilions. This was my first ever metal show I'd ever been to, and it was Defenders of the Metal Hammer's Defenders of the Faith 3 tour, where it was Trivium headlining, then it was In Flames, then it was Ghost in the middle of the bill.
So they had at least one metal band.
And then they had Rise to Remain, which was, as far as I know, Austin Dickinson's. I think it's Austin Dickinson. He's the son of Bruce Dickinson.
Oh,
yeah, I think it was Austin.
He's Dickinson's sons. Dickinson's sons. Interesting.
Yeah. And then there was a band called Incense at opening the show. But I just distinctly remember, like, everybody I went with were, like, metalcore kids, you know? Yeah. And admittedly, at the time, I was too. Yeah. And basically, we were all really hyped. I got hyped for everybody. I went and checked out all of the bands. I heard everybody was going. I got into Trivium. I got into Rise to Remain. I got into In Flames, Incense. Mm-hmm. But Ghost really stood out to me, where it was like, holy shit, these guys are like the most unique band on the bill. So I was really excited for them.
Yeah.
For everybody else I went with, it was like the Piss Break band,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate because it was a nice break from the dun, 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 yeah, kind of vibe going on. They actually went on and did the more anthemic, old school style songs, and the cool thing about that was it broke it in half really. And then like after seeing them live, I was like, yeah, that was cool, but I never really latched onto them beyond that. Although Ritual was a really cool song, I really liked.
Yeah.
A few years go by, the Ghost BC thing happens, and I just passively hear about that.
Yeah.
But then I remember, I don't want to give away too much, but I remember hearing Sirisi on fucking Scuzz TV and just thinking, ooh, that's a fucking riff. And then ever since then, they've just continually impressed me with their just growing as this massive phenomenon, basically. But I think the cool thing as well, the coolest thing for me was seeing them at Plymouth Pavilions to a crowd of people that realistically you could probably, if you stood there for 10 minutes, you could count how many people were there. But then years later, 8 years later, I see them touring Prequel, supporting Metallica at Twickenham Stadium, and I thought, holy shit, in 8 years, these guys have gone from the Piss Break band to like the big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
you know, as far as, you know, the modern definition of metal, where everything has to be blast beats and growls 24/7 or it's not metal, like, sure, they're very light on the side of things, but like, let's be real for a minute. This is what metal was for a long time, and they've just done a modern take on the old school thing.
Yeah.
And actually put melody back as the focus, you know. So with that, you know,
interesting.
What about you?
So, yeah, my story is really interesting. You can judge that, whether people that are listening. I got into them like I think a lot of people did at the time, which was you saw James Hetfield wearing a Ghost shirt. And this would have been right after their first album came out.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge Metallica fan. And you hear, not only do you see him wearing the shirt, he talked about the band. And if you remember, they did that ill-fated like music festival, the Orion Music Festival. And I think one of those years, Ghost played that festival. So they are like a Metallica approved band, which doesn't always equal a band that I'm going to get into, but it definitely puts them on my radar. So I went and listened to the first album and thought it was really cool. And it was very different from the kind of shit that I listened to. Most of the time, that type of metal isn't the kind of metal I listen to. I like some of it, but it's not my go-to. But for some reason, that album, the way that it sounds and the catchiness of the songs and stuff, I thought it was really cool. And I also really like when people fuck with satanic imagery and themes and stuff like that. But just because I know it's going to piss the worst people in the world off, and it makes me very happy.
Yeah.
So I liked that album a lot. So flash forward to when the second album comes out, that's the only one that like I always have a problem pronouncing it. Infestumam.
Yeah, that's the one. Infestissimum.
Yeah. Anyway.
Infestissimum.
Look, I'm just a simple caveman. I don't understand all these things. Anyway, so that album came out, and I bought it when it came out because I was excited for it, and I actually really liked the lead, single for it, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. But when it came out, like, it was one that didn't quite grasp me the way the first album did. It kind of lost the flavor for me real quick. And so I was like, oh, okay. But then something else happened, and this is related to flaws. Hold on, I gotta switch out my earbud. Sorry about that.
Hold up.
One of my earbuds is starting to crap out and starting to buzz. And I'm like, no, I can't have a buzz in my ear for the whole goddamn episode. Anyway, so this is like, I would call this like a flaw of mine, why this happened here. So shortly after that album, I started to notice people that were not into metal, and who, a lot of them that I ran into, because at that point I actually worked at an office where I went to an office, people that didn't even really care about music, all of a sudden were getting into Ghost based solely on the aesthetic and the fashion.
Yeah.
And it started to seem like it was almost like transforming into a gothy Hot Topic kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, and it was a lot of those people, and some of you may have had like similar run-ins with people like this, but I would run into people, and they were always younger than me. And I'm usually like, I'm never a name 3 songs kind of person. I never have been. If you tell me you're into music, I want to have a conversation with you, but I'm not going to ask you questions like that. I'm just going to be like, oh, cool. Like, what's your favorite album? What's your favorite song, or whatever? So I started to see like a lot of these people that, like, they would have a Slayer shirt on, and you walk up to them and you're like, oh, fuck, that's an awesome shirt. I love Slayer. Like, so you're into metal? I'm like, yeah. Oh, cool. Like what are some of your favorite metal bands? Oh, I really like Nightmare Before Christmas. And I'm just like, what? And because when you boil it down, they really are just a Hot Topic goth kid. They're not really into the music. What they're into is stuff like A Nightmare Before Christmas, and then the metal that fits some sort of aesthetic that they are okay with wearing their shirts or whatever. So those are the kind of things that make me understand why the name 3 songs thing started to happen. But
yeah,
I was never like that. I would just kind of walk away and go, oh, okay, well, clearly you don't want to have a metal conversation with me, so I'm just going to go do my own thing, enjoy your fashion or whatever, So, but a lot of people, it started to seem like it was getting co-opted by that crowd, and I should have just said, well, who the fuck cares? And I should have just kept listening to the music. But I shut the fucking door on Ghost. I was just like, all right, well, you guys, if you guys can have that, I'm going to go listen to, the metal where people care about the music and not what they're wearing or whatever. And that was stupid of me. I will admit that. So 2 albums went by where I fucking listened to them. I don't remember if I ever even heard a song off of Prequel and Meloria. And so we get to the newest album, Impera. When that album comes out, I start to notice that the hype around the band has gotten fucking massive.
Yeah.
And whenever that happens, and we've done this with other bands, like we did Slipknot at one point too, because I always think to myself, if this band is that fucking huge, there's got to be something cool about them that I need to figure out what that is. And a lot of times I'll go and dig into the band and I'll go, oh, still don't like it. That's too bad. I guess I just can't be a part of this. Just like with the Oasis thing, like I get swept up in like positive energy. And so in this case, the positive energy moved me towards, wanting to check out the new Ghost. And I didn't get around to it at first, but the band that I have to thank for getting me into Ghost is Def Leppard. And it's because Joe Elliott sings on a different version of Spillways. I think it's the same song, although they just put Joe Elliott's voice on the song. And so I went, oh, Joe Elliott's on this? And so I went to go listen to the song, and I went, this song's fucking great.
Yeah.
And so it led me to the album. And literally, like, I remember, like, I dropped my kid off at school one day, and I decide on the way home, because it's about like a 30-minute drive, Like, I'm just going to pop on this new Ghost album and listen to it. And like, every single song, I was like, wow, this is really good, but also way beyond that other Ghost stuff that I was listening to. Like, I'm like, this is a band that has evolved not only in their sound, but also in their fucking songwriting. I was just like, this is just a fucking good album. Yeah. And so I, like I am, because I'm like a music fan, when something catches my attention, I immediately go, well, I want to go buy the vinyl. So I bought the vinyl and I loved the album. So I started to move backwards again to go to the albums that I missed. And then I was like, wow, there's so much good shit on these albums that I missed. And then the clincher for it, which is really recent, actually, the clincher for it was taking my kid to the theater to see the Right Here, Right Now concert film. And because they're into Ghost. And so once I found that out, I was like, oh, cool. Let's go see this concert film when it comes out. And like, I loved every minute of that concert film. It was so like fun and quirky and a little goofy and just fun as hell all the way through, that I was just like, holy shit. I got really caught in and up into it. And so this happens behind you, which is, you can see, which I have all their shit. And I'm now like a full on Ghost fan. Where I love everything in different degrees, as you'll hear, because we're going to rank them. But I got caught up in it now, where I just think it's fucking great. And there's like, even though they are a band that draws very much on older music, and sometimes parts that I literally hear and I go, oh, this sounds like this band. But the way that they're presenting it and putting it forward, there's no band like them now. There is no band like Ghost. And so I'm just like, this is awesome. And I'm glad. It made me even more excited to find my way into this, because I'm just like, I'm never going to fake it. I'm never going to be a poser and just pretend to be into something because it's big. But when I do latch on to something and find my way into something that's like really popular, for some reason I feel extra cool. Because I'm just like, I'm a 46-year-old dude, and I've gone through different stages of being into really huge bands and bands that nobody fucking ever talks about ever. But for some reason, when you get that collective thing where there's a group of people, because it's so rare to be around a large group of people that you are like, these people are all cool. It doesn't happen a lot. So when I can be a part of something like that, I'm just like, yeah, and you know what? And welcome all the Hot Topic folk. Or whoever, bring them all in. So it's been like a little bit of a roller coaster of my interest in Ghost, which is why like I suggested doing them, because I'm like just like when you with Enter Shikari, when you started getting a little more interested in like diving back into their stuff. I feel like that's the time that we need to be tackling bands, when one of us is like excited, like, oh, I've been getting back into this. Let's talk about it. So that's when like we have a schedule, but that's when we just like rearrange the schedule and just be like, let's just shove this band in here, because I think that makes it for a better show, really, especially in the case of when one of us doesn't know the band that well and the other one does or whatever. I think it's great. Everyone out there is like, shut the fuck up, old head. Will you start ranking the albums? Yes, we can rank the albums. We can rank the albums. And we're just doing the 5 full-length Ghost albums, and mostly because it's fairly new-ish, some of the stuff to Eddie, and the EPs are mostly cover songs. There's one original on Pope Star, and then there's the 7 Inches of Satanic Panic. And there's a new song on the Right Here, Right Now soundtrack, which is at the very end. But it's kind of a different sound, Ghost. It's not even really metal at all. It's like a pop song. Anyway, so we're just going to stick to the albums. And I guess let's do this review.
Real quick, here's our verdict on the non-album tracks. Really good songs. Okay, so now we can start with the albums.
I could rank those songs. My favorite of all those songs is probably Mary on a Cross, followed by Square Hammer, followed by Kiss the Go Goat, and then whatever that newer poppy one is like the last one. But that's just because it's newer and I haven't heard it as much. But yeah, Mary on a Cross is just fucking catchy as fuck. So is Square Hammer, really. But so there you go. I rank those. Now we'll move over to the albums. And as usual, I'll throw it over to Eddie Sparxx. I love that you wore a Metallica shirt too, because that's my connection to Ghost.
Hey, so look at that.
And Justice, I think, just came out like 36 years ago or something. Is that what they said?
Oh shit! The stars have aligned once again.
The anniversary. Yeah, I think it came out September of '88 or something like that.
I think didn't America's Least Wanted come out like 32 years ago today or something?
Today.
By Ugly Kid Joe. Holy shit! Ugly Kid Joe.
Happy anniversary! Happy odd number anniversaries to albums.
Yeah. Also, can I say to have Ugly Kid Joe perform on home turf last Sunday at Falmouth Princess Pavilion. Holy shit, what a gig that was. Myself and Callum from Sage went, and nice. It was fucking incredible. They're an excellent live band. Anyway, Ghost.
Yes, Ghost. So so let's do it. We're doing 5 albums, and Eddie Sparxx starts us off with his number 5 Ghost album.
Okay, will we match up? Infestis Umam.
No.
Okay. Well, that's my number 5.
Although thank you for pronouncing it that way, because now I'm going to listen. I'm going to think of it that way every time I try to say the album title. Infestisumam.
Yes. Like I just kind of break it down into syllables at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, honestly, this one for me, this was the Ghost BC era. Something to do with copyright led to a temporary name change before the band literally took over the entire fucking landscape of hard rock. I
mean, because and that's I love it when people point that out. They're not the first band called Ghost, and I'm like, who the fuck cares?
Yeah, they've eclipsed them at this point. Yeah, it's this one for me. It's funny. I just remember at this point, like when I heard their first album and it was very recent, I was like, oh, this is something really different. This is something really cool. But by the time Infestisumam was released, I was deep in the grunge hole. So I was.
That sounds gross.
Yeah.
You stick it up your grunge hole.
That's a nice new insult. Grunge hole. But yeah, I just remember this one when it came out, it just kind of passed me by. And there are moments on it that I do like, but I think this being, I think it's the longest Ghost album, and I can't really describe why this one landed at the bottom. I think it simply ended up being overall my least favorite collection of stuff they've done. By no means is it bad. I would just say that it's like a 7 out of 10 for me, for what they did for those for this band. But it is a progression, ever so slightly. It's upped the oomph in some ways, and in other ways, production wise, it's a little. There's certain production choices on this album where I'm like, well, that is a quiet set of drums, or that, or something like this and that. There were a few factors, but ultimately, it is a cool album. What's that one? I think it's Year Zero. It starts with the Belial.
Yeah.
Beelzebub. And I just I'm not saying that I recognise that because they're TikTok sound and whatnot and all that there. But I genuinely really fucking vibe with that song. Really cool. But it ended up, I think as well, this is the longest Ghost album, and I think having come off the heels of Opus Eponymous, which is a little bit more short and sweet, they're in and out in a crisp 35 minutes. Mm-hmm. This one, comes in at 48, and I think this one for me was the one album where I was like, oh, we're still going, okay, but again, like I say, still really fun, still really cool. But to my ear, the least interesting of the Ghost albums to me personally, but it's still cool. So yeah,
Cool.
over to you.
So yeah, needless to say, I like all of these albums, and as with a lot of bands that I find my way getting into that really kind of have staying power with me, I think all of them are important when it comes to the progression of their sound, getting to where they are now. But I don't know if this is an what do you call that? An unpopular opinion. I don't know if it is or not. But funny enough, my number 5 goes to Opus Eponymous from 2010, their first album.
Well, that one's my number 4, so we can kind of camp out in this zone for a little while.
Hey, okay. So yeah, their debut album, and I already talked about how I got into them, and I really liked the album at the time. I still really like it, but I really feel like they improved upon what they were doing in so many ways. And Ritual's a killer song, and it's actually gotten to the point now where like I actually like hearing the live versions of Ritual more than the album version. But this is definitely like the most straightforward, basic version of their sound, and it's the only one where like I really feel like there was I guess maybe Infinitesimum is kind of the same, where they were focused on sonically making it sound older as well.
Yeah, I definitely, there's a distinct attempt there to do like a 70s into the early 80s.
Yeah.
Like, doom metal meets Scooby-Doo vibe going on.
Which works for this album.
Yeah.
And at the time, like I was really into it, but in hindsight, it really actually lacks a lot of the charm of the albums that would come later.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because thinking about my mindset and how I was enjoying this album when it came out, I wouldn't have predicted them going the way that they are now. And so as in my opinion, this first album, comparatively speaking, is the most kind of dull of their albums when it comes to just overall songs and performances and everything. It really feels kind of restrained now that I'm listening to it by them wanting to have a particular sound. I say them, it's I guess technically I think there was one guy that was in the band that kind of collaborated on songs, but yeah, and that's another thing that is interesting. And this was like the same thing that I ran into like when we did Rush, where like there are fans that are like huge fans that know all these in and out like inside jokes and references that like I don't know, even though I'm a huge fan. When it comes to like the world of Ghost, the names of the vocalists at the time, different stories going on, like from online stuff or whatever. I don't know any of that stuff. And that was the only part in the movie that I was kind of lost on, because I'm like, well, I don't know who these people are. I mean, I'm having a great time, so I don't fucking care. But it kind of made me go, well, now I kind of wish that I knew, but I've got too many other things going on to like really learn all of that stuff. So if anyone has a Cliff Notes, anyone out there, if you're a Ghost fan and you know the lore and all of that stuff, maybe like the Cliff's Notes. I guess now they're called Spark Notes. Spark Notes version of the Ghost story and everybody involved, and then that way, like I can like, if we have a test, I'll at least know the basics. So anyway, so yeah, that's my number 5, and your number 4, Opus Eponymous.
Yeah, I had a little bit more of an attachment to this album, so I think that boosted it above Infestissimum a little bit. I definitely feel like this is like the embryo of their sound. And ironically, I think what they've ended up doing with purposefully making themselves sound like a retro kind of vibe is that they have inadvertently done exactly what bands that started like in the 70s and into the 80s did, where their production just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And
you know, like, now that you mentioned that's true and perfect. I love that they did that.
I feel like, you know, I gotta wonder if it's like one of these 4D chess maneuvers where this guy was like, we are gonna perfectly replicate the career of a old school heavy metal hard rock thing.
Maybe at some point, I think in the beginning, Tobias is his name, right? Tobias.
Yeah. Tobias Forge.
I don't think he intended for this to be popular at all. So if there was like a plan, I don't think it probably started until the first album kind of blew up. So maybe there was, though, at that point.
I think it's really cool. It's this like weird little time capsule now to where, hey, you remember when, you know, that huge arena rock band was doing Scooby-Doo chase music in like tiny venues, and it's like it's ace, man. Like it's got its own charm to it now, but I definitely agree that Ghost's strengths lie within the anthemic and more blatantly overblown theatrics than just a bunch of dudes in cloaks looking spooky with the album cover behind them, as they did when I first saw them. And now, I remember when I saw them, they had a like satanic pope looking guy come out and play a fucking saxophone solo. It was amazing. Yeah. And just to see the same band in like two completely different phases of their career firsthand is a really cool experience. And again, it's cool tackling these bands where I've kind of been around for them. So,
oh hell yeah, their first album, you would have been what, like 12 when their first album came out. So you were, you know, but I mean, you were getting into all kinds of things. So
yeah, the early 2010s, like I would go as far as to say the entire 2010s for me were just a discovery journey of everything that led to that point. I was at, and now I'm kind of just doing a quick little catch up of the last 10 to fucking hell 14 years at this point.
It never ends. From somebody that's been doing it for a long time, it never fucking ends.
There's always that one band that you somehow missed.
For music fans like us, it's a lifelong thing. That's the only thing that's going to suck when we die. Is I know for sure I'm going to be on my deathbed and be like, God damn it! But I didn't have enough time to listen to all the music I wanted to listen to.
Wait a minute! Wait, I missed a Fates warning. Oh,
I'm literally going to be like on Discogs. Look, I'm going to buy this one last thing. Take care of it when I'm gone. You know, that'll be me. Anyway,
nice. Stack the vinyl upright.
Yeah, alphabetized and chronological, please.
And then you go, wait. You go, and by genre if you have time.
I've never done that, but like that's. You know, that would be if I was a very rich person and I had like, you know, I have a little over 2,000 pieces of vinyl. If I had like 10,000, where you had like a whole room with like one of those ladders that like slides around, then I might be a little more like, all right, let's start breaking things up a little more, because I can't just be like, I got to find something that's in the M's. It's this entire bookcase.
I did it once. I did it once in years back. I did it once in my room, and all I'll say is it works in a record store.
It's
one of those ideas that looks good on paper, and then you do it and you think, oh, Fuck, where the hell is that one?
Well, I think for me the problem would be that because of my like OCD and anxiety, I would be like, well, what is this? Alternative metal or groove metal? Like what is this?
Yeah.
So I would end up driving myself insane trying to categorize everything.
Yeah.
Anyway, are you done with this one?
Yeah, again, like I say, Ritual to me is the first kind of taste of where they would end up going, where it's like, oh, this is kind of an anthem, dude. And they would go on to become even more focused on that as they would go forward. But yeah, your number 4, please.
Yeah. We're just doing a little crisscross. My number 4 is Infestissimum from 2013.
Okay, cool.
Second album, their first on a, which is fun, which is still blows me away that they ended up on a major label at album 2. But listening to this now, I think it is a step forward because it gets more ambitious, adding like choirs and stuff. And then the songs are a little more varied and a little more memorable. And that's what I like about where they would end up going, is that they started to make the kind of albums that I really enjoy, where it isn't just 10 versions of a similar sound. They will have slower things and things that are more, have metal riffs and things that are more of a, I don't know, a fucking sing-along anthem kind of thing. And I like that when bands just have a variety of ways that they write songs. So Infestissimum is a step up, but I think it's still lacking a bit of what has really made me a big fan of them. Even though this has, I mean, Year Zero is a great song. I love Monstrance Clock. And I think I always really liked the song, but it gained like a little bit of fun once I realized that when they're singing "Come Together," they are literally meaning come together. So when they, come together for Lucifer's son, I'm just like, oh, this is great. It's an incredible album closer, and it's just great. But yeah, I just think overall they, especially with the album that follows Infestissimum, not to give anything away, but they took a giant step forward with that album, in my opinion. And so this one, it's still got a little bit of like the trying to sound old school. And I think maybe Tobias, because around this point, Tobias is doing a lot of the heavy lifting songwriting wise. And I feel like maybe for people that know more about him, maybe you can confirm this. I feel like maybe he was still a little bit nervous and unsure about fully pushing things as far as he could go. Because I feel like something happened where that guy finally understood that people were really into his band, and he just went, oh, cool. Well, I'm just going to fucking go for it then. But I think there's still a little bit of that, I don't know, like trepidation. Is that the right word I'm looking for? With this album, but I still really like it. It's just, I think the last 3, which we're going to get to, are just fantastic. So my number 4 is Infestissimum.
Nice. Okay, so
Infestis fuck your mom.
Hey. So my number 3.
All right, and then now we're back to where we have the same 3 left.
And I didn't know this until just now before I opened it up. Its name is Latin for the pursuit of something better. And I think this lines up perfectly as my number 3 is album number 3, Meliora.
Yeah.
Cool.
Which I still call Meloria.
Yeah.
But you want to know the number 1 reason why I do that?
What's that?
I can't see very well.
Fair.
So every time I look at the album title, the L and the I and all that stuff, it seems very close to. I just got my glasses upgraded, but I got to wait 2 weeks to get them in. But I look at it and I'm still like, it says Meloria, doesn't it?
Dude, don't even trip, because genuinely, up until about a month ago, up until very recently, did I find out that the Nirvana song "Sliver" isn't called "Silver."
Yeah.
You know, for years I thought it was "Silver." Hell, it might have even said that on Kerrang when the music video played. You know. And I just internalized
But you're
that.
sitting far away from the TV and you're just like, it says Silver. Yeah. So it's like one of those things where like now I feel like I lose so many cool points because I'm like, it'll probably take me years before I call it the proper name. It's Meloria, which means nothing. Is that somebody's name maybe? But Meliora.
You're going to be out here like Dr. Steve Brule, like Mel Bringus.
So, but just to bring us back to where we are, no, we have not matched up here. So go ahead.
Okay. And I thought that might be the case, because this album is a huge step up in terms of everything, really. This album really, I think, is the culmination and perfection of their initial trilogy of albums, where it's like the first couple albums are like the foundational elements. Album number 1 is really stripped down and basic. Infestissimum starts adding in choirs and stuff, like we said. But this one here, holy shit. When you've got songs such as, and I quote, From the pinnacle to the pit.
Now it's going to be stuck in my head.
Dude, seriously, is a mic drop of a song. Holy shit.
Yeah.
And Absolution, one of the album's like deep cuts towards the end of the album, that fucking riff gives me that same kind of like, as what's it called? What's that? Just One Fix by Ministry.
Oh, yeah.
It's got that kind of stomping but upbeat, almost kind of a marchy vibe going on. But like, this album is spooky, fun, old school metal perfection in terms of what the vibe they were going for. They've the first 2 albums were building up to this. And this kind of is the crossing over point between their more Sabbathy riff approach to their more... They would go on to be a bit more 80s hard rock in their approach from here on in. So this is kind of like that meeting point of we're kind of passing the torch from the early influence over to something a little bit more, you know...
Which makes me feel so stupid that I didn't listen to this album when it came out. Like that's like the album equivalent of me like looking the other way when some lady's flashing her boobs.
Yeah.
I'm just like, no, I'm not interested.
Seriously, though, I remember my friend Dan raved about this album at the time, and I was so deep in the hair metal hole at this point.
That's another hole.
Yeah,
that's not that sounds less gross, but still kind of gross.
Yeah. I mean, at least it's clean.
Yeah.
But yeah, which is funny because there is a lot of arena rock aspects to this as well.
Yeah.
But this definitely, it's the crossing over point where it goes from spooky organ band to holy shit, this is an amazing collection of songs. This is a repeat listen. During this week, I've been listening to several of the songs from the latter half of albums. Loads. So yeah, again, like I say, Seriously alone is one of the, if it's not top 10 metal songs of the 2010s, I don't know what is. I love that song.
Does 2015 count as a 20? Oh, it is 20. The 20 teens,
2010s.
Whatever. I don't even know what to call things anymore.
Yeah, I always remember that era being really weird. What are we gonna call this fucking thing? You know, yeah, we had the 2000s, and then it was like 2010s. Really
The
weird.
twin teens.
Twenteens, but then that's similar to 20s. 20s. And
20s.
we're back. We're back to Ghost.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So all in all, really cool. Really cool. Me likey. And I think a lot of others did too, judging by these review scores.
Yeah. Cool. My number 3 is the album Prequel or whatever from 2018. Because I'm sure I'm pronouncing that incorrectly as well. Their 4th album. And at this point, the Tobias had fully started, collaborating with outside songwriters, which I honestly have no problem with, because you can't be like a Kiss or Aerosmith fan and worry about that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Because a lot of bands work with outside songwriters.
At the end of the day, if the song is good, the song is good. I don't care who wrote it.
Yeah.
Whoever's performing it just needs to do a good job delivering it.
As long as somebody involved in the band is involved in the songwriting, it doesn't matter to me. But even sometimes a song can be written to bring up Def Leppard, fucking Love Bites, not written for them. And it was supposed to be a fucking country song. But they took it. Yeah. It was written by
You Might Love.
Yeah. It was, I don't know if the lyrics were all exactly the same, but I think it was written by Mutt Lange and intended to be country, and then they took it and made it this fantastic rock ballad. But anyway, so it can happen. But boom, back to this prequel. It's a really strong album. Some of my favorites, Rats and Dance Macabre, is fucking great. But you know what? My biggest disappointment, which I still love the song, my biggest disappointment was learning that the lyrics to Dance Macabre, he's actually saying the word bewitch. And I thought he was just saying be with you, but he was pronouncing it kind of cheekily, bewitch you. And I was like, oh, I love that he says it that way. Oh no, he's actually just saying bewitch. Okay, fine. But I loved it the other way.
Could be a double entendre. He could have done that on purpose.
I'm sure that's what it was, because that's what it sounds like. But it's still a fucking fantastic song. I think the reason why I ended up putting this at number 3, because it's a very strong album, is that I feel like from Infestissimum to Meliora, I did it right.
Hey,
that's a big step forward. To Prequel, it feels a little more lateral, a little bit of a step up, but then you get to Impera, which is another step forward, in my opinion. So this is the one where I'm listening to it, I go, none of this surprises me. Like, this all seems like stuff that I'm like, okay, I feel like Ghost could have done this at the time. But then again, I'm coming at it from a totally different angle, so who the fuck knows? I may feel differently if I had gotten into this album when it came out. But I feel like the songwriting is not quite as memorable as my top 2 albums, but that's just splitting hairs, really, to find somewhere to put something. Because it's still what I consider the fully formed Ghost sound, which I find utterly enjoyable and made me a huge fan. So I really don't have any gripes about this album. It's just ranking them. My top 2, I think, are just absolutely fantastic albums, and this one is just slightly less fantastic, I guess. It's great. It's just it had to go at number 3 because my number 2 and 1 are just fucking killer. So yeah, my number 3, Prequel.
I can jump straight off of that because my number 2 is Prequel.
All right, cool. Kill beans.
I weighed it up, and I was honest with myself, and I said, sonically and from a songwriting standpoint, which do I prefer, Meliora or Prequel? And as much as I like Meliora, I think that one puts a nice little bow on the albums that came before it and perfected on that. but I really love this AOR big backing vocals vibe that they've gone on to go on. And again, like I say, Prequel is more of a step in that 80s style riffing as opposed to the 70s style riffing that really hit its peak on Meliora with the likes of Seriously. I know. Do a drink, take a shot every time I say Seriously in this episode. Anyway, all in all, though, this album, I mean, they up the anthemic and the melodic here, and they've got it's that 80s hard rock inspired sound that's creeping in that just clinched it for me with this album, where I was like, oh yeah, that's going high up. And I'm very pleased that this may be being as I'm on my number 2. Everybody's figured out what my number 1 is at this point. I'm very pleased to announce that the latest album from a band is my favorite album from a band in an episode, because that's rare. That is rare on this show.
Has that ever happened with us? Ever?
I don't know. Maybe for a band that wasn't around very long. I think for you it was Nirvana. Because in
no, Nevermind was number 1 for me.
Oh, was it?
I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever had a number 1 album be the most recent album. So this is a first, ladies and gentlemen. It's a cranked and ranked first.
Cool. But yeah, like I say, prequel. Yeah, it steps further into that arena rock thing that they're doing now, and I think they're the perfect band to go in that kind of direction. And I think this stands as a necessary step from Meliora to get to Impera and have it make the sense that it makes. But I really enjoyed it. It's great. Yeah. So with that, over to you for your number 2. What is your number 2?
So my number 2.
What's your number 2, young man?
My number 2 is going to be Meloria or Meliora from 2015.
Oh, shit.
Which means we have a joint number 1. So, but I love Meliora. God damn it! I gotta like unlearn the wrong way of saying something. Their third album, and it's this is one of those ones where like the riffs started to show, like really impress me, because I like the kind of riffs that they started to do, and I guess you make a good point that they really did move away from 70s style riffing, and it got a little more 80s style. But from the pinnacle to the pit's fucking great. One of my favorite Ghost songs is Mummy Dust. I love that song. Dust. Yeah, it is just, it's cool. It's a cool fucking song. And I just think this is a massive step forward from Infestissumam. This has got to be the hardest pronunciations of album titles we've ever done. I don't
know. The Carcass one was pretty tricky.
Oh yeah. But yeah, it's like them just blowing out and expanding their sound and truly becoming like a legitimately great band. Like I think once Meloria, came out, just listening to this album, this is like it's no longer arguable whether or not they're a good band. Whether you like them or not, that's a different story. But like, some bands are just, even if I'm not into them, you see them and you go, all right, I can't argue that they're a great band. They just don't do anything for me or whatever. Yeah. And Meloria is the beginning of that. I think they were living up to the hype at this point. And I just love the bigger, fuller sound with their music. That's a good thing, because like if going back and listening to their earlier albums, especially the first one, I love that they did it that way now, because now I know like, oh, I have this stripped down 70s vinyl version of their stuff, and then there's going to be this bigger, grander version of their stuff that I'm just like, this is great. I love that those both exist. But I just think Meliora is a huge. Oh, did it? I think that was it. I didn't even try.
That was
time.
it. That was the one. Yeah,
that was the one. That was the one. So I just think it's such a big step forward for them, and it's such a fantastic album that, yeah, it ended up being my number 2. But it's to me not as good as our joint number 1, which I will then throw over to Eddie Sparxx to start us off with our joint number 1 and the first newest album hitting number 1 in our show history ranking times.
Maybe ever. Yeah. I mean, over the course of 12 years, man, they pulled off one hell of an evolution.
Hell yeah.
I definitely think they've landed on a sound that works best for them. I think that they ultimately suit the more majestic and soaring 80s energy than the direction they began with.
Yeah.
I like when they do the Sabbathy 70s bits, but I love this like AOR vibe they're going for now with like they've even got like the Def Leppard style backing whoa-ohs going on, and it's like, oh, they're just knocking, we're ticking every fucking box that makes this arena style so good. And like listening to this album ironically feels like a religious experience where it's like, oh my god, the 80s hard rock sound. it's here, you know.
And also just sounding good, because there's a lot of bands that out there that try to do a little bit of throwback, and it's always kind of missing something.
Yeah.
And same thing with like the stuff they were doing in the past. There's shitloads of these fucking 70s worship bands, and most of the time they don't have the sounds or the songs to back it up. And so in this case, you've got Ghost coming in and filling in a void, and they got the songs and the sound and I guess really, if you're comparing it to 80s hard rock, they got the budget as well.
Yeah.
You know? So I guess you need a little bit of that mummy dust, you know?
I think as well, this is one of those albums that is just so perfectly put together. Like, to even where like the little interlude tracks, every part of this like 46-minute album is necessary. Every little part just leads perfectly into the next. And just when you think, okay, that they must have exhausted the the well must have run dry by now, they hit you with another song that's just anthemic as fuck, dude. Like, the amount of cool stuff going on here is amazing. It really is an amazing album. And
not to mention, you get that thing that always tickles me a little bit, where the intro song comes back in at the very end of the album. That always makes me happy when bands work that in a way that's not expected. So
absolutely. And I mean, just looking at this track list, I mean, to have Spillways, Call Me Little Sunshine, Hunter's Moon, Watcher in the Sky, those tracks back to back after Kaisarian, can't remember. After that,
I know how to say that because he says it in the song.
Kaisarian. There we go. I forgot how he said it. But yeah, even then, like after that little thing, Dominion, 20s, Darkness of the Arm of Life, Griftwood, Passage, and then Respite on the Spital Field. I mean, god damn, dude, this album is just AOR goodness. It's just anthemic 80s goodness distilled into like a modern presentation, and done in such a way that it doesn't seem ham-fisted. It just fits them perfectly. Yeah.
I honestly, you going through it right there, I did that last night. I went and listened to this album again because I was like, all right, is this really going at my number 1?
There's got to be a catch, right?
But not only did it solidify itself as my number 1 last night, like it got to the last song and I went, this is a perfect album. Like I would not change anything about this album. Every single song has something about it where I go, that's fucking great. Whatever that might be. A lot of times it's the actual melodies, vocals, and the catchiness of the choruses and all that stuff. But there's plenty of other things here as well. It's not lost on me, and I'm sure not lost on you when you do hear those Def Leppard moments, or in a couple spots, White Snake moments. I definitely heard.
Yeah, did you hear the part from Still of the Night? Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah, and so like, but it's not done in like a way. It's almost done in like, I feel like he knows, as the leader of the circus, Tobias. I think he knows what he's doing in those. It's a respectful homage. It's not ripping it off.
Yeah,
it's
because like not only that, the most recent Right Here Right Now live album, the back cover of the album is modeled after Kiss Alive. Like it looks exactly like the Kiss Alive.
Hold up.
And so like it's almost like he is, because he's my age. So he's in his 40s, I believe. I think he was born, I got to look up how old is Tobias Forge?
Oh, dude, that is sick.
Yeah, he was born in 81, so he's almost my age. He's in his 40s. And so what I really like is that he has managed. You see what I'm talking about with like the lettering and everything?
Yeah.
It looks like the back of Alive. So, but I feel like he, like me, we're like the perfect age where he found a way where he's connecting with a lot of younger people. My kid's 13, and so you got the younger people getting into Ghost, but there's these nods to the older people. Like it's like, I'm going to throw this little bit in there, and 13-year-old kid isn't going to know this is the back of Kiss Alive, but some of you will, and it's almost like this. I just love the everything that's going into this now, and so anyway, Impera, most recent album, probably the most outside songwriting collaborators that he's ever had, but if this is what comes out of it, if he just needs some people to bounce some stuff off of and get the creative juices flowing, then please keep it up, because this is like nothing but infectious songs, a great production, great performances, like an excellent album in every way possible. And aside from me using the P word perfect on this, because there's nothing I'd change about this album, but it's also, I think, the perfect intro for anybody to get into this band now, because it's almost like it's got a Black Album quality to it, where people who aren't necessarily into metal or maybe even into rock music, I think maybe can find a way into this album. And it might be a gateway album, where not only are you going back and listening to the other 4 Ghost albums, but it might be like, oh, well, where do these sounds come from? And like kids like me that all of a sudden are like, oh, well, what, like this riff, somebody said this sounds like Whitesnake. Let's go listen to some fucking Whitesnake or whatever. And so that alone is like I guess that's a lot of things, but that's why like it has to be the number 1 album, because like everything about it just feels. And I hope I'm not wrong. I hope this isn't the peak of what they can do. He and they can do. But if it is the peak, it makes sense that maybe their next album won't hit me as hard as this one did. Or who the fuck knows? Maybe they will go even further into an area that I'm not expecting, but it somehow tickles my fancy. All right, my dogs love it. But but like once I kind of figured out like, oh, he's my age and he probably grew up on some of the same shit that I did. And like even overseas, he's from a different country, but I feel like, I kind of I have a little more faith where I'm just like, oh, I feel like knowing what he's done so far, I feel like the next album he puts out, he's not going to want to just rehash Impera. So where can he go? And I'm just like, I'm ready for it. I mean, it's going to be a tough act to follow, but I'm fucking ready to see where this band goes now.
Hear me out. Hear me out, right?
Grunge album.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. I was about to say that. Yeah. They go full flannel. They come out like they come out and all their robes are plaid. Like
you know what? Like not necessarily in that vibe, but in the '90s vibe. I think it would be cool if they leaned more into like the Queensryche vibe.
Ooh,
you know what I'm saying?
Where it's still in that like kind of it's still in that kind of vein, but darker.
A little more proggy, a little darker.
Yeah.
Like proggy, like they have proggy elements in some of their songs, but I feel like they could go more proggy.
For sure. Yeah.
So I don't know, but yeah, I'm happy that we matched up on this because I thought it was weird because I thought about that too. I go, I don't think I've ever put a new album as number one before.
Yeah.
But the more that I've been listening to Ghost a lot recently over the past several months. And yeah, there's a reason why this one really brought me into the band because it's just absolutely fantastic. So, thanks to James Hetfield for introducing me to them, but they ended up doing the work themselves. But yeah, putting this album out. So,
that's a hell yeah from me, brother.
Yeah. Speaking of that, there's a Hetfield's in a new movie.
What's going on with that? I'm out of the loop.
I don't really know much about it, but I know I'm going to watch it just because not only does it have Hetfield in it, it stars Peter Dinklage, and it's a Western. Oh. And I'm like, I don't really like Westerns, but I saw like James Hetfield's name next to Peter Dinklage, and I went, oh, I think I'm going to watch whatever this is.
The Thicket.
The Thicket. Yeah.
Directed by Elliot Lester and written by Chris Kelly. It is a film adaptation of the 2013 novel by Joe R. Lansdale. It stars Peter Dinklage, Juliette Lewis, Esby Creed-Miles, Levon Hawke, Andrew Schultz, James Hetfield, Leslie Gray. James Hetfield! And that is
really they should have done like they'll do like a director's cut of a movie. Yeah. They should do a Metallica fan cut of the movie where like James Hetfield is the star, and then it's the same story, only there's a lot more shots of James Hetfield just reacting to stuff. He's just like, yeah. Anyway, but it makes me want to watch it. But and I'm sure I will. Later tonight, I'm taking my kid to go see Beetlejuice.
Nice.
Which I've heard is good. I really like the first one. So
Beetlejuice is one of few 80s movies I still have to see.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, I know. I don't know how. I as a child I was under the impression we had every 80s movie in this house, and then just
your mom fucked up.
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
I don't know how it will, because like I saw it in the theater when I was 10, and so it was a big deal for me at the time. I loved it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I had watched it later in life, if it would have hit me quite the same way. Because we've watched it again recently, and my kid's into it, and I still think it's good, but I don't know. It compared to other 80s movies, it may not quite have what you're wanting. Because at this point, the Tim Burton-ness of everything has gotten way too Tim Burton-y all the time. So, but yeah, I've heard it's good. I've had a thing for Winona Ryder ever since Heathers, and it hasn't ended. Since even as an older lady, that's the one thing that I'm very happy about as becoming an older man, because usually the story goes, you get into your 30s and your 40s, and all of a sudden you find yourself being attracted to like 20-year-old women, and that is the complete opposite has happened to me, where I'm just like, not enough wrinkles and saggies going on with this lady. Get the fuck out of my face Where are the real women at? So so much so that like I saw like an interview with Pamela Anderson, who like is in like a new movie where she's acting and shit. And I never gave two shits about Pamela Anderson when she was like Playboy model and Baywatch and shit. But I just see her completely makeupless as an older lady, and I go, "Oh, am I finally gonna get into Pamela Anderson?" because that's what's happened to me as an older man. Like I just, for some reason, my brain didn't fuck up the way a lot of older men's brains fuck up. I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't want to buy a sports car either. So. But if you look behind me on my wall, ladies and gentlemen, that is your midlife crisis happening right there. All the fucking records. That is easily a Ferrari and a Tesla Cybertruck. All.
Yeah, I was going to say, you genuinely, you could probably buy a fucking Lambo with that shit.
I'm going to do that. That's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to sell all my records and buy a Lambo.
Yeah.
Hell no, I don't give a fuck about cars at all. Anyway, I don't know what brought us here, but it's all right. This is what this happened. Actually, I'm pretty surprised that we didn't divert more during this episode, but we were pretty on business this entire episode. And so thank you for being here. Especially if you're new, if this is the first episode you've heard or watched, this is what it's like every episode. So if you're into this kind of shit, it's always that, and some people love it no matter what we talk about. And those people that are like the fans, we have some references for them, and I won't explain where they come from because I don't remember where they come from. But they are Peanut Butter Platypus. I don't remember where that one came from. Aluminium Squirrel. Definitely don't remember where that one came from. Belvedere Ball Sitter, I know where that one came from. That came from the Mr. Belvedere story that you told. And then Christmas Dog, which is at this point, we don't even like if it were just video, I would just do that, and everybody knows it's
Christmas Dog.
Yeah. Which that comes from our wonderful Ted Nugent episode. If you are not a fan of Ted Nugent, go watch the Ted Nugent episode because it's fabulous furry fun.
Airbud fever.
That dog's not just a golden retriever. There's a golden receiver. Anyway. All right, so that's the end of Ghost, and we normally celebrate on Cranked Ranked when we finish a band's discography by singing a little bit of a classic of the music world, one of the most important songs ever made, really. And so we're going to give you a little bit of that right now. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, we did it. The little thing popped up, says playing music.
Yeah, we did it. Look back.
We did it.
Yeah.
We did it. I don't know.
And though our day danced, the Stone Age.
Of course, we're not going to fucking do Stonehenge.
Can't you just fold the meat over? Yeah, I'm folding the sandwich and it's breaking apart. See, it doesn't work.
This fucking. he picks up the what do you call it? God damn it! Why my brain is.
Bread is too small for the meat.
It's the olive. He picks up the olive. What's going on in here? Hello, and then there's a little guy in here. Anyway, all right. Before we really go off the rails, thank you for listening and for watching. I think next week is a very special episode of
oh shit,
and a very embarrassing episode of this show. Occasionally, we'll do what's called a CNR sidebar, where we kind of just go off of ranking. And just pick a subject and kind of, do an episode on it. And this next one, I'll explain it more when the episode, when we're doing the episode. But we're going to be listening to and discussing, and I guess in your case, reacting to demo songs that I made when I was 14, 15 years old. So this is, 94, 95-ish, 94, around that time. And some of them are like, they're all really bad, but some of them are like less bad. And then some of them are real bad. So that'll be fun for everybody, because these are literally going to be songs that like not even my wife has heard these. Like,
wow.
Because I don't want to get divorced anytime soon. Anyway, so that's the end of this episode of Cranked and Ranked. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. You're all beautiful and amazing. If you want to send us, drop us a line. Sometimes I'll read emails and stuff on our shows, depending on what you want to send us. But you can go to oldheadnetwork.com, and there's a contact thing where you can send me an email. And you can subscribe, although I don't really ever send out very many things, but maybe that'll change at some point. But anyway, that's the end of Cranked and Ranked. Thank you for being here as usual. And as usual, I will throw it over to Mr. Eddie Sparxx to take us out.
Later, dude.
Spooky.